Okay, so we're looking at law of sines and law of cosines. The first thing we're going to do is decide which to use, because this is all mixed up and it's not clear. So, you're going to use law of sines for everything except, and then we're going to use law of cosines. If you have 3 sides, no angles. So if you have 3 sides and no angles, you have to use law of cosines. Cosines. If you have 1 angle and do not have the side across from it. You got to use law of cosines. Otherwise, you can use law of sines for everything. So there's 2 cases where you have to use law of cosines. 1, you have all the sides and no angles. 2, you have 1 angle and don't have the sides. You have 1 angle and you do not have the side across from it. Okay. You ready? Yes.
What is the second
So you have, if you have 1 angle and you don't have the side across from it. Okay, so let's just look at a couple cases to figure out what those mean, some examples. All right, let's look at number 7. Number 7 right here, we have 1 angle and we do not have the side across from it, so we're going to have to use law of cosines. Okay, here is another example. Number 11. I have all 4 sides, so I'm going to have to use law of cosines. How are we doing about that? It's law of sines for everything except 2 cases. When you have a triangle like this where you have 3 sides and no angle, can't use law of sines. Have to use law of cosines. When you have 1 angle, you have to use the law of cosines. Okay. So let's just try a couple of these. You guys will tell me if it's law of sines or law of cosines, and then we'll solve it. We'll just do a couple of them, okay? All right, number 1. We're finding A to C, so I'm going to label these sides little b, little a, little c. I'm finding side AC. I have 2 angles and 1 side. What do you guys want to use? Law of sines or law of cosines? Sines. Okay? So I'm going to use law of sines. So I'm going to say sine A over little a, or sine 92 over 15, equals sine B, 28, over little b. And I'm not going to go through and do all of them, but I am going to do this one because it's been a while since we did the law of sines. Okay? Once I have it set up like this, what do I do next? Cross multiply. So I've got little b sine 92 equals 15 sine 28. What do I do now? Divide by sine 92. And I'm just going to put that exact thing in my calculator. I like to hit the control divide because it makes the fraction. And I hit 15 sine 28 divided by trig sine 92. I get 7.04 and I'm done. Because it says between capital A and capital C, which would be little b. All right, let's do some even ones since your homework for tonight is just the evens. Does that sound good? Okay, let's go to this even side. So let's look through this. Is there any of these that you guys are confused what you do? What you need to use? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You guys feeling okay about? 12, 14, 16, 18. Is there any of those you want me to do? Now, 14, 16, and 18, you have to find everything. You sure you want me to do 15?
No, 16.
Do 16? Okay. Just because 15 is not due tonight. 16 is. Because you only have the evens. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is label it little c, little b, and little a. Okay. I say we find side BC first. You guys okay with that? Okay. If I want to find that side, what do I use? Law of sines or law of cosines? Cosines, because I have two sides and an angle, and I do not have the side across from the angle. So I'm going to use little c squared equals a squared 21 plus b squared 27 minus 2 times 21 times 27 cosine 33. Can you guys see that? No. Okay. So I just used the formula that was on the board. I just plugged in the numbers. Now I'm going to literally plug that whole line into my calculator. Is anybody confused what I did so far so I can back up? So I'm looking for little c, which is between b and a, because it's across from c. Cosine 33. So I get c squared equals 218.948. I'm going to take the square root of that. And I get c equals, and I'm going to round to 14.8. Okay, so I have found this side, but I need to find what? I'm still missing two angles, correct? So this is now 14.8. So I'm going to tell you right now, you can now you have three sides and one angle, so I can use what trig function now? I can use law of sines. So I can say I'm going to find a, okay? So I'm going to find sine a over 21 equals sine 33 over 14.8. Could I have found sine b instead? Could I have found angle b instead? Yeah, using the same thing. It's totally fine. So I'm going to go 14.8 sine, that's an 8 by the way, I don't know why it looks like that, a equals 21 sine 33. And what do I need to divide by to get a by itself? Can I take the sign with me? No. Because the 14.8 is before the sign. So the sign goes with the a. So I have sine a equals, and I'm going to put that in my calculator. Control divide 21 sine 33 divided by 14.8, which gives me 0.7728. And then I'm going to take the inverse sine of that answer, and I'm going to get 51. Now, how do I find angle B at this point? So I can just go 180 minus 51 minus 33 to get my answer. I don't have to do a whole nother sine function. That gives me 96. And I'm done. I've got 1, 2, 3 things I found. Should we do a word problem? What was, how did I?
How did you find the numbers?
This is 51. I got sine A equals 0.7728. And then I took the inverse of that, sine of -1, to get 51. Let me see. You said 35 and it's 33 degrees. That's why. Most of your mistakes that you guys will make on these are calculator errors, and they're not the calculator's fault because you pushed, you put 2 instead of 21, or you put 6 instead of 16, So just double check what you're pushing into your calculator. We're going to do a word problem now. Let's do one that you have to do for tonight. So let's do number 20. Jack is on one side of a 200-foot wide canyon. Are we listening in the back? We're stopped talking. We're actually paying attention to what's going on? Thanks. Jack is on one side of a 200-foot wide canyon. Jeez. And Jill is on the other. Jack and Jill can both see the trail guide at an angle of depression of 60 degrees. How far are they from the trail guide? Anybody else see this and go, what are we talking about? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Story problems are fun like that. All right. So, we have 200 feet. We know that. Jack and Jill can both see the trail guide at an angle of depression, so they're looking down, at an angle of depression of 60 degrees. How far are they from the trail? So we want to find both of these. So this is 200 right here. Both of those angles in there are 60. And we're going to find both of these. So I'm going to label this A, B, C. This is little c, but we're going to find little a and little b. So we can just find little a first. Oh, sorry, this is little b and this is little a. Okay, I'll redraw it because we weren't paying attention the first time. Yep. Okay. We're 200 feet apart. We're looking at an angle of depression of 60 degrees. We want to know what both of these are. So I'm going to label this A, B, and C. This is little c, this is little b, this is little a. Okay. We're going to find little a first. What are we going to use? Law of sines or law of cosines? Do we have the angle across from the one side we have? Could we find it? Because we could go 180 minus 60 leaves us with what? 60. So we could go sine of 60 over 200 equals sine of 60 over a. Cross multiply. A sine 60 equals 200 sine 60. And then we divide both sides by sine of 60. Anybody got a prediction for what the answer is going to be? You think the answer is going to be 60 feet? It's going to be 200, yeah. So 200 sine 60 divided by sine of 60 is 200. What's another way we would know that each of these are 200? So you guys are telling me two different answers. One, we know that these cancel out, and we both, these are the same, right? This is sine 60 over 200, this is sine 60, so A has to be 200 for them to be equal to each other, right? And so that's what Alex was saying, correct? Braylon was saying, hey, you know all of these are 60, all these angles are 60, so this has to be an equilateral triangle. So all of these sides have to be 60. So we didn't even need to do the law of sines to figure this one out. Once we found that it was an equal angular triangle, it has to be an equilateral triangle. Okay, do we want to do another word problem, or do you guys want to get to work? Another word problem. Let's see. Let's do number 20. You want to do 26 or 28? 28 has a picture, so I feel like that makes it easier. You want to do 26? Okay. Matt measures the angle of elevation to the peak of a mountain at 35 degrees. So right here, this is 35 degrees. Here's the peak of the mountain. Okay. Susie, who is 112 feet closer on a straight level path, measures it as 42. So here's Susie. This problem sucks. Okay. How high is the mountain? Okay. So this is 112 degree, 1,200 feet, excuse me, here. And so we have to figure out two things. This is a right angle, right? But we need to know what x is, but we have to find the hypotenuse to figure it out. So we're going to have to find this right here. I'm going to call it A. Okay? We have angle A. We have that across from it. We have this, so we need to find this angle right here. We can call this B. So we have to find that angle right there. So we have to go 180 minus 42 gives me this angle right here is 138. Then I have to go 180 minus 138 minus 35 gives me this angle up here is 7 degrees. Then we can use law of sines. And we can say sine of 7 over 1,200 equals sine of 35 over A. So after all that, we can start our problem actually. So we're going to get A sine 7 equals 1,200 sine 35. Divide both sides by sine 7. We're going to put that in our calculator, so we're going to hit control divide to get a fraction. 1,200 sine 35 divided by sine 7 gives me 5,647.78. And now we still don't have our answer though, because now we have to do the trig function where this is the opposite. We have the adjacent, so we're going to have to go sine of 42 equals opposite x over a hypotenuse, 5,647.76. So we have to go 5,647.76 sine 42 equals x. So x equals around 3,779.11 feet. Right? Is that what you guys got? So even if I was going to give you a story problem, I would not give you one this hard ever. Okay. So no matter what I ever do, I would never give you a story problem that hard on a test, quiz, or exam of any sort. Okay. So you guys are going to do the evens on these. Do you guys feel a little bit better about when to pick law of sines, law of cosines? Okay, I'm going to put this up again so you guys can see it. If you have 3 sides and no angles, use law of cosines. If you have one angle but don't have the side across from it, use law of cosines.